The first words he said through the phone made my chest tighten and my vision blur. "I'm divorcing you, and I've already sold the house," Alex laughed, his voice sharp, cruel, like he was savoring my shock. I sat frozen on the living room couch, the phone trembling in my hand. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, but the light felt like it belonged to another world, one I no longer recognized. My name is Emma Lawson, and for the past 12 years, I had built a life of trust, compromise, and love, or so I thought. Alex, my husband, the man I had shared dreams with, bills with, and even our secrets, had just shattered it all in a single sentence. And the fact that he laughed afterward, it wasn't just hurtful, it was malicious. I gritted my teeth and forced my voice steady. "Excuse me, what did you just say?" He chuckled again. "Didn't you hear me? The house is gone. Sold. Gone. And so are you, eventually. Don't worry, it's all taken care of." The betrayal cut deeper than any argument ever could. The man I loved, who had promised loyalty and partnership, had secretly orchestrated the dismantling of my life. And all for what? Greed. Spite. A thrill. I didn't know yet. But I knew this: he had underestimated me. Behind his arrogance was a bigger pattern, a man who always thought he could control everything, manipulate every situation to his favor, and never face consequences. I had watched him in action countless times, the small lies, the excuses, the smooth reassurances that masked a calculating mind. But this was unprecedented. I hung up, my pulse racing, and stared at the now empty space in my mind where trust had once lived. The house wasn't just bricks and walls, it was the center of my life, my daughter's bedroom, my memories. And he had sold it without even telling me. As I paced the room, plotting, I realized something crucial: Alex had made a fatal mistake. He assumed I'd crumble, that I'd beg or plead. He assumed I'd be helpless. But I wasn't. I had a mind of my own, patience, and the quiet strength of someone who had spent years building resilience. And then there was the unspoken question hovering in the air: why had he done this? Was it money, revenge, or just the thrill of seeing me falter? I knew the answers would reveal themselves in time. And when they did, Alex would see that his laughter was the beginning of his downfall. For now, I let the anger simmer beneath the surface. Let him believe I was vulnerable, unaware, powerless. Because the moment he thought he had won, I began my silent, meticulous planning. And in that moment, as the shadows of betrayal stretched across the room, I whispered to myself, steady and chilling: "He thinks he's destroyed me. He has no idea what's coming." The next few days were a strange mixture of disbelief and hyper-awareness. I replayed his call in my mind, each laugh, each deliberate pause, each casual cruelty. Something about it felt rehearsed, like he had anticipated my shock and relished it. I started noticing small things that had always been there but now screamed warning signs. First, the secretive calls. Alex would leave the room for a work call that never ended, speaking in low tones, glancing over his shoulder. The voice on the other end never came through my awareness, but the tightness in his jaw and the sudden seriousness in his eyes told me more than words ever could. Then, the favoritism. Even before the house incident, I had observed subtle patterns. His brother, his colleagues, even our friends often received his attention first, his praise first. I'd been patient, rationalizing it as normal, but now it felt like an unspoken hierarchy, where I was always last. The lies were creeping in, too. He had told me he'd taken care of the house paperwork and that everything was fine, yet I kept catching inconsistencies. Statements didn't match conversations. Dates didn't add up. The sense that he was hiding something from me grew heavier with every passing day. And the money, small, almost imperceptible discrepancies in our accounts, made my stomach churn. Withdrawals I didn't recognize. Unfamiliar charges. Minor at first, but enough to make me notice. Alex brushed them off casually, but there was a flicker in his eyes I couldn't ignore. The emotional strain was relentless. Every time I tried to confront him, his charm and defensiveness wore me down. I found myself questioning my own judgment, doubting my instincts. But deep inside, a voice whispered, "Trust what you know, not what he says." Then came the first truly disturbing moment. I overheard him speaking on the phone in the garage, voice low, sharp, urgent. "She'll never see it coming, not if we move fast." My heart stopped. My pulse raced. I didn't need to hear the rest, the intention was clear. And suddenly, all the small red flags, all the little moments I had ignored or rationalized, snapped into focus. They weren't coincidences. They were patterns. I sat in the kitchen afterward, staring at the space where we'd shared countless meals, imagining the betrayal unfolding right under my nose. The kitchen, once a place of warmth, felt like a stage, and I realized I had been cast in a role I didn't audition for, the oblivious wife. I clenched my fists, jaw tight. I couldn't confront him yet. I had to be smarter, more precise. The anger simmered beneath the surface, but it was now paired with strategy. This was no longer just about shock or heartbreak. It was about preparation, about patience, and about waiting for the perfect moment to turn the tables. I whispered to myself, voice low but unwavering. "I see you. And I'm not powerless. Not anymore." I should have known, should have seen the signs sooner, but nothing prepared me for the depth of his betrayal. It began with a file I accidentally discovered while looking for an unrelated document. Tucked in the back of the study drawer, neatly labeled, "House Sale and Transfers." My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were contracts, signatures, and bank transfers, all forged, all designed to remove me from the life I had built. Alex had not only sold the house without telling me, he had pocketed a large portion of the proceeds, diverting the rest into accounts I had no access to. Every assurance he had given, every promise of partnership, was a lie. And the person who had orchestrated this with him was my own husband. The betrayal hit like a thunderclap. My heart shattered, each beat echoing disbelief. I couldn't breathe. 12 years of marriage, years I had trusted him with my life, my finances, my secrets, were reduced to a trail of deceit. I remembered the little red flags, the secret calls, the unexplained bank activity, the casual laughter when I asked questions. Every subtle warning had been real. And now the truth was in my hands. Rage surged. It wasn't just anger, it was a burning, all-consuming fire. How dare he think I wouldn't notice? How dare he laugh as he stripped me of my home, my security, my stability? How dare he underestimate me so completely? I sank to the couch, my head in my hands, the papers spread around me like a battlefield. Shock and sorrow swirled together. I felt crushed, humiliated, and violated, but beneath it all, a flicker of clarity emerged. I realized something crucial: I had proof. Every forged signature, every manipulated transfer, every fabricated excuse was documented. I could fight back. I could reclaim what was mine. And I could ensure he paid, not just in money, but in consequences that would leave him stunned, powerless, and exposed. I allowed myself a moment to breathe, to let the anger settle into determination. My hands no longer shook. My eyes, red from disbelief and tears, now burned with purpose. The question was no longer if I would act, it was when, and how. I stood, clutching the documents tightly, my mind racing. Every lie, every betrayal, every act of greed would be met with precision. I wasn't acting impulsively. I was planning, calculating, preparing. I whispered to myself, steady and cold. "You think you've won. You think I'm helpless. But you've just started the countdown to your own undoing." The storm was coming. And when it hit, there would be no escape. For 2 days, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see were those forged signatures, those hidden bank statements, and Alex's smug expression as he laughed through the phone. My home, our home, sold like it was nothing but a pawn in his agenda. But on the third morning, something shifted. I woke up before sunrise, the house quiet, the world still. I walked to the kitchen, made myself tea, and sat at the table surrounded by the documents of betrayal. And for the first time since all this began, I didn't cry. Instead, I felt a strange calmness settle over me, like the eye of a storm. That was when I realized something. Alex expected me to break. He expected tears, panic, desperation. He expected me to be predictable, fragile, easy to manipulate. He had no idea who I truly was. As I sipped my tea, a single moment replayed in my mind, one that became the trigger for everything that came next. It was from years ago, when my mother visited and whispered to me in the kitchen after Alex snapped at me over something trivial. "Emma," she'd said softly, "you have a fire in you. Don't ever let someone convince you you're weak." For years, I had quietly pushed that fire down, choosing peace, choosing patience, choosing compromise. But now, looking at the evidence of Alex's betrayal, his arrogance, his cruelty, that fire roared back to life. That was the moment. The exact second everything hardened into resolve. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to ask for explanations. I wasn't going to crumble. I was going to fight. Smartly. Silently. Strategically. Until Alex realized that the woman he thought he could walk over was the one who would bring him to his knees. I gathered every document, scanned copies, created backups on encrypted drives, and organized everything into folders. I reached out to a trusted attorney, an old friend from college I hadn't spoken to in years. When she picked up, her voice full of warmth, I felt my throat tighten. "Emma. It's been so long. What's going on?" I inhaled deeply. "I need your help. And it's serious." She didn't hesitate. "I'm here. Tell me everything." As I explained, layer by layer, the betrayal unfolded aloud. Hearing my own words forced a new clarity. Every lie Alex told, every manipulation, every forged document, it transformed from something that hurt me into something I could use against him. By the time I finished, she said the words I had been aching to hear. "Emma, you have a case that will bury him." I closed my eyes and exhaled, feeling something powerful rise within me, confidence. Alex had lit the match. But I was about to burn down the world he thought he controlled. And for the first time I smiled. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of grief, because of clarity. Real, blinding clarity. For weeks, I had been drowning in pain, replaying every moment, every insult, every lie Maywish had fed my mother to poison her against me. But now the fog had lifted. I saw her for what she truly was, a woman who had built her entire life on manipulation, and believed she was too clever to ever be caught. She wasn't. And that was going to be her downfall. Step 1, gathering proof. I began where every betrayal leaves footprints, messages. My mother's phone had been locked, but her iCloud wasn't. She always kept automatic backups on because it felt safer. In those backups, I found everything. Screenshots from Maywish twisting my words. Audio messages of her crying fake tears, claiming I refused to help with Alma's medical bills. Deleted chats where she convinced Alma that I was planning to steal the house. Each file was a sting. Each proof was a wound reopened. But each discovery made my resolve stronger. I copied everything into a folder named Truth. Step 2, following the money. Next, I checked the bank transactions. I already suspected Maywish had been draining Alma's account, but seeing the actual transfers made my jaw clench. Large withdrawals. Unexplained transfers to a second account under her cousin's name. Purchases she hid by deleting messages from the banking app. I documented every transaction. Then I called a lawyer, a friend from college who owed me a favor. The moment he saw the evidence, he looked up sharply. "Do you want justice?" he asked, "or do you want revenge?" I didn't blink. Both. Step 3, setting the trap. To expose a liar, you don't confront them directly. You let them walk into the light on their own. So I played along. I visited Maywish the next day, quiet, polite, defeated-looking. She smirked the entire time, convinced I was broken. She even told me, with fake sympathy, Alma trusted me because I always cared more. I smiled. A smile that made her pause for a second, searching my face. Good. Fear always begins small. Over the next 2 weeks, I pretended to be clueless while planting subtle questions around relatives, neighbors, and the family lawyer about financial confusion in Alma's final months. Maywish didn't know, but every person I spoke to later contacted her, asking uncomfortable questions. Her mask began to crack. She called me one night, voice trembling slightly. "Are you trying to ruin my reputation?" I answered softly, "Why? Is there something to ruin?" Silence. Then she hung up. Step 4, the final card. By the end of the month, the lawyer had everything ready: fraud reports, inheritance challenge documents, and a legal summons she would never see coming. But I saved one last move for myself. The voice recording. The one where she admitted to her cousin that she finally convinced Alma to write him off, because he doesn't deserve a single rupee. I hadn't used it yet. Not until the perfect moment. Not until she was standing somewhere she thought she was safe. Not until part 6, the climax. Because I wasn't just planning revenge. I was designing her collapse. The day of the inheritance hearing arrived with a strange calmness in the air, like the stillness before a storm that already knows exactly where it will strike. Maywish entered the courthouse wearing her self-satisfied smile, the same one she wore the day she pushed me out of my mother's hospital room. Her makeup was perfect, her clothes expensive, bought, no doubt, with Alma's stolen money. She shot me a glance dripping with false pity. "Last chance to back out," she whispered. I looked directly into her eyes. "I'm not the one who should be afraid." She didn't know that everything she'd built was about to collapse in front of every person she desperately wanted to impress. The first blow, financial exposure. As the hearing began, her confidence was unshakable. She sat upright, hands folded like an innocent saint wrongfully accused. The judge asked about the missing funds. She gave her well-rehearsed speech. "Alma trusted me with all her decisions. I managed everything with love." My lawyer tapped the file in front of him and calmly stood. "We'd like to present Exhibit A through F, documented evidence of systematic withdrawal of funds by the defendant." He projected the bank statements on the screen. The color drained from her face, slowly at first, then completely. Her jaw twitched. Her fingers trembled. A murmur rippled through the room. Relatives who once praised her devotion leaned forward in shock. Her own cousin avoided her eyes. She stuttered, These aren't what they look like." But the judge was already leaning in, eyebrows raised. The second blow, the secret messages. My lawyer continued, "We also present deleted conversations retrieved from digital backups." Screenshots filled the screen, her lies, her manipulations, her plots. Messages where she told Alma that I didn't care, that I only wanted money, that she was the only loyal child. Gasps echoed around the courtroom. Her voice cracked. "He's twisting everything. Those are fake." People stared at her like she was a stranger. The final blow, her own voice. I stood up slowly, pulling out my phone. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steady, "one last piece of truth." I played the recording, the one where she bragged to her cousin. "I finally convinced Alma to write him off. He doesn't deserve a single rupee. When she dies, everything will be mine." Every syllable was a hammer striking her facade. Maywish didn't breathe. The judge didn't move. No one in the room blinked. When it ended, she broke. Not softly. Completely. She lunged toward me. "You trapped me. You twisted everything. You were supposed to be my brother." Security held her back as she screamed, ugly, raw, desperate. Her perfect mask shattered in front of everyone. The collapse. The ruling was swift. Fraud. Manipulation. Illegal transfers. Inheritance revoked. Funds frozen. Criminal investigation initiated. She fell to her knees, not out of sorrow, but out of the realization that her kingdom of lies had burned to ashes. I walked past her slowly. She looked up, eyes wild with disbelief. "You ruined my life," she hissed. I leaned down, whispering, "No. You ruined your own." I just turned on the lights. The courthouse emptied slowly, leaving behind a stunned silence that felt almost sacred. Maywish was gone, escorted out under security, her face a mask of shame and disbelief. Her carefully crafted life of lies had crumbled in a single day, exposing her to the world she had once tried to manipulate. I walked out into the cold air, taking a deep breath that felt heavier than any I had taken in months. The weight of betrayal, heartbreak, and deception had lifted, replaced with clarity and empowerment. For the first time, I felt truly free. Free from manipulation, free from fear, free from the person who had tried to destroy me. Friends, relatives, even strangers offered quiet nods of respect. Some whispered apologies for ever doubting me. Others simply stared, awestruck at the precision and resolve it must have taken to orchestrate such an undeniable victory. I didn't respond with arrogance or gloating. I simply smiled, a small, private acknowledgement that justice had been served. Back at home, the atmosphere was different. The house, now securely mine, was a sanctuary once more. The air felt lighter, the walls no longer carrying the tension of hidden schemes. I sat at my kitchen table, sipped coffee, and allowed myself a moment of quiet triumph. The evidence, the planning, the careful execution, it had all paid off. The experience had changed me. I was no longer the naive, trusting person who had been blindsided by deception. I was stronger, smarter, and far more resilient. Betrayal had been a cruel teacher, but it had also forged a version of me that was unshakable. I thought about Maywish and the arrogance she carried, the belief that her schemes would go undetected. It was poetic, in the most chilling sense. The more she tried to control, manipulate, and deceive, the more she exposed herself to the very consequences she had tried to avoid. Sparkle's goosebump poetic justice line. Those who build their empire on lies will one day find the walls collapse, and it is the truth they ignored that delivers the final blow. Movie camera message to viewers. Have you ever faced betrayal by someone you trusted completely? Felt powerless while they manipulated the truth? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes, the bravest act is rising above the pain and reclaiming your power. If you want more stories of cunning, resilience, and justice, like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because every hero has a breaking point, and every betrayer eventually learns that their own lies can become their undoing.